Hello and welcome back to another video. Here we're going to be looking at the quadratic formula. So this is a higher tier topic only, so if you're doing GCSE Foundation Maths, I would probably focus your revision elsewhere. So if you are doing higher tier maths, then this is a really useful topic to be confident with. So the objective here is to use the quadratic formula correctly to solve quadratic equations. So if we consider the equation x squared plus 7x plus 3 equals 0, what do you think the problem with factorising this is? So pause the video for a moment and have a think about this. Okay, so if we try to factorise this quadratic equation, we would need to think of two numbers that multiply to make 3 and add to make 7. So the issue here, so if you correctly identified this, the issue here is there actually exists no numbers that multiply to make 3 and add to make 7. 3 is a prime number. The only numbers that multiply to make 3 are 1 and 3, and there is absolutely nothing you can do to 1 and 3 to get to 7. So the issue here is this thing here does not factorise. Okay, so we need a solution to solve quadratic equations that do not factorise. So luckily we have this method. It's called the quadratic formula, and the quadratic formula enables us to solve any quadratics regardless of whether or not they factorise. So obviously it's a lot easier to factorise if you can. If you can't factorise a quadratic equation, the quadratic formula can always be counted on. You can always use the quadratic formula to solve any quadratic equation, regardless of whether or not it factorises. So it goes like this. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So what we need to do is first write the equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We need to identify a, b and c, and then we just need to substitute those values into the formula. So we can either give answers as surds or we can give them as rounded decimals depending on what the question's asking for. So here's an example. We have 2x squared plus 7x plus 2 equals 0. So the quadratic formula is not as nasty as it looks. Really, you're just subbing numbers into a formula. So the first thing we need to do is identify a, we need to identify b and c. So your value of a is the coefficient of x squared, so a is 2. B is the coefficient of x, so b is 7, and c is that constant on the end. So in this case, c is 2. So the quadratic formula is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So in this case, because a is 2, b is 7 and c is 2, I'm going to plug those values into here, and we end up with x equals minus 7 plus minus the square root of b squared, so 7 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, and then times c, which is also 2, all over 2a, so 2 times 2. So that's going to be minus 7 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 7 squared is 49, and then 4 times 2 times 2, that is going to be 16, and then 2 times 2 is 4. So we have minus 7 plus or minus the square root of 33 over 4. So at this point, you can leave your answer like this if you're going to leave your answer in surd form, or if the question specifically tells you to give your answers to one decimal place or 3 significant figures, you would then type each individual one into your calculator. So you would type in minus 7 plus the square root of 33 over 4, and then you would type in minus 7 minus the square root of 33 over 4. A common question that I get asked is, where's the plus minus button on my calculator? So there is no plus minus button on your calculator. You need to type in both of them. But if you type it in exactly like this, you can just press the back button and then change the plus to a minus when it comes to typing in this one. Okay? So here's another example. We have 3x squared plus 4x minus 8 equals 0. So the quadratic formula is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So in this case, a is going to be 3 because that's the coefficient of x squared. B is going to be 4 because that's the coefficient of x. And c is that constant on the end. So in this case, it's minus 8. So if we sub these into here, we end up with x equals minus 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 4 squared, minus 4 times 3 times minus 8, all over 2 times 3. So that's going to be minus 4 plus or minus the square root of 16. Minus 4 times 3 is minus 12. And then times in minus 12 times minus 8, you get plus 96. So 12 times 8 is 96. 2 times 3 is 6, so it's all over 6. And then we have minus 4 plus or minus the square root of 112 over 6. And again, we can either leave our answer like that, or we can type into our calculator minus 4 plus the square root of 112 over 6, and minus 4 minus the square root of 112 over 6. And we would get those two answers as decimals. Okay? So this question here, again, I'm going to write out the quadratic formula so you can kind of see how the more questions you do, the more repetitive they are, because you just write out the quadratic formula so many times, you then start to just memorize the quadratic formula almost naturally. So we have x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So in this case, a is 1, b is minus 5, and c is 2. Because b, the coefficient of x is minus 5, c, that constant on the end is 2. X squared by itself, that's 1x squared, so that's why a is 1. So if I plug the numbers in, we have x equals minus 5, so that actually becomes a plus 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so I'm going to put minus 5 squared, minus 4 times 1 times 2, all over 2 times 1. So that's going to be 5 plus or minus the square root of minus 5 squared is 25, minus 4 times 1 times 2 over 2. So that is 5 plus or minus the square root of 25, take away 8. So that is 17 all over 2. Okay, so a common mistake here would be if you type it into your calculator at this point, so if you stop here and just type all of this into your calculator, a common mistake would be not putting the minus 5 into brackets. So if you ever get a math error, that's probably the problem, because if you don't do that, what you're going to get for this is minus 5 squared, which is minus 25, and then what you're going to end up doing is you're taking the square root of a negative, which is not possible. So if you type it into your calculator at this point here, you must remember to put brackets around your variables. Okay, so here's an example. So in order for the quadratic formula to work, your quadratic equation must be equal to 0. So this thing here is not equal to 0, so we need to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to do that by minusing 3x and minusing 4 from both sides. So you end up with 2x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals 0. And then we have the formula, so x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So in this case, a is going to be 2 because it's the coefficient of x squared, b is going to be minus 3 because it's the coefficient of x, and c is going to be minus 4 because it's that constant on the end. And if you plug these into the formula, you end up with x equals minus b, so minus 3, which is 3, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so minus 3 squared, minus 4 times 2 times minus 4, all over 2 times 2. So that's going to be 3 plus or minus the square root of 9, and then minus 4 times 2 times minus 4, because you have two negatives, that's going to be positive. So you're going to end up with plus 32 all over 4. So that's 3 plus minus the square root of 41 over 4, and that is your answer. Again, you can then type both of these solutions into your calculator to get an answer. So the question is, when do we actually use the formula? So when you're in an exam, how do you know whether to use the formula or whether to factorise? So there's particular clues when the quadratic formula might be useful. So you have particular phrases that a question might ask you. So it might say, leave your answers in surd form, or it might say, give your answers to three significant figures. So the hint here is the fact that if your quadratic equation could factorise, it wouldn't necessarily give an answer that's in surd form, and it also wouldn't give an answer that's able to be rounded to three significant figures. So the fact that it's telling you to do this is implying that you need your calculator. So that's a big hint that you're going to use the quadratic formula. So here's an exam style question. So it says solve x squared plus 7x plus 9, given your answers to three significant figures. So it's fairly obvious by looking at this quadratic equation that it can't factorise, but the big hint that I'm going to use the quadratic formula is the fact that it says give your answers to three significant figures. So I'm going to do that. So the quadratic formula is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So in this case, a is the coefficient of x squared, so that's 1, b is the coefficient of x, which is 7, and c is that constant on the end, so that's 9. Plugging them in, I have x equals minus 7 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 7 squared, minus 4 times 1 times 9, all over 2 times 1. So that is going to be minus 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared, which is 49, minus 4 times 1 times 9, which is 36, all over 2. So that's going to be minus 7 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. If I now get my calculator, I have x equals minus 7 plus the square root of 13 over 2, and x equals minus 7 minus the square root of 13 over 2. So typing that one in, I get minus 1.697, and I also get x equals minus 5.302. So the question says give your answers to three significant figures, so I'm going to write x equals minus 1.70, and I'm going to write x equals minus 5.30 if I want to give them to three significant figures. So here's some quick fire practice questions on this topic. It says give each of your answers to two decimal places, so make sure you do that. So I will reveal the answers in a short moment. Okay, so well done if you had a go at those. The answers I have just displayed on the right. So well done if you managed to get all of those correct. If you didn't, maybe go back to the beginning of the video to see where you went wrong. But yeah, that's everything for this video, and that is also everything on this equations topic. Well done if you had a go at this video, and I'll see you again in another video. Okay, bye.